specifically in the case of Fast R, it is running as hard and fast as you can for anywhere between the 5K and the marathon distance,
Yeah.
and that's what it is.
Welcome to the Marathon Podcast. My name is Christian Everdell Warwick. Warwick runs on Instagram, YouTube. Really happy to have you here back on the podcast. And today we're having Damion Perry with us from Puma. He's a product line manager and he's a 227 marathoner. The main thing I was very curious to talk to him about was obviously the product line of Puma. They've been exploding the last year. Their marketing strategy has been great. Their shoes have been great. And I'm curious to hear, how has this process really been? I'm back to running myself. Things are feeling better every day. I'm very happy about that. Also started getting back on my bike, I did yesterday. Anyways, I'm not going to talk about myself here. I'm very excited to share this episode with you. I'm going to go up, watch Norway in the World Cup. Hopefully they're doing well. We'll see when this episode comes out. But enjoy this conversation with Damion and have fun. Damion Perry, we've been planning this for about 2 months. I'm very happy to have you here. Welcome to the Marathon Podcast.
Thanks, Christian. Happy to finally dial it in post Boston, post wedding and honeymoon for you. We can talk.
Yeah, finally. It is funny because I think we started texting on like maybe a couple of days before Boston Marathon, and then we're like, oh yeah, we should totally have a podcast episode or recording. And then I happened to run into you. I think maybe just after the race, I was trying to find my family.
Quite literally ran into me frantically trying to figure out a way to call your then fiance, and you
Yeah,
just
right. I borrowed your phone, didn't I?
yeah, you stumbled into me and you're like, oh my God, hey, also I just finished the race. I ran a PB and I need to call my fiance. So it
Yeah.
was a nice way to do it.
Yeah, it was great. Energy was good. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So there, like I told you just before we started recording, there are several reasons I wanted to have you on. Obviously, you're the product line manager of Puma, which is super interesting. I think that to a lot of people, it's going to be interesting to hear more about the products, the thoughts behind it. But you're also a fast runner yourself. Will you first just say something about how you enter the world of running?
Sure. Yeah, I've been running for a long time now, but I would say I didn't grow up a runner. I grew up playing, team sports of many different ways. And then, at a certain point, you're just maybe not as good to continue playing those team sports. But I wanted to not be out of shape and, a worthless university student. And ended up on a treadmill and, clicking buttons up faster and faster to feel that I was, more competent than the person on the side of me. And eventually one thing led to another. And, I went to a D3 university in the States. So like not the highest level, but I was asked to go to practice. They're like, hey man, you should come train. And then one thing led to another. And, I fell in love and became super passionate about the sport. Um, so yeah, it all just kind of snowballed together and uh, gained that passion over the years at university. I wouldn't say I was like as much as I even have now. As you just mentioned, I work at Puma as a product line manager, so my life is all about running, but it connects quite nicely with my own personal journey of running. Yeah, we got shoes everywhere, and I get to put them on and take them out the door. So it's a nice, you know, full package in terms of running
Mhm.
and work and life.
Yeah, and I think I'm gonna ask you to introduce yourself twice in this episode. So we're
Sure.
now done with the first part, and because I want to ask you a little bit about your running before we get to the professional side
Yeah.
of you at Puma, because you ran a 227 marathon earlier this spring, right?
Yeah, I just ran Copenhagen this spring. I
Hmm.
ran 2:27, which was a nice big PB for me. I had run my first marathon last year in Valencia um, in 2:31. So really nice to chip below that 2:30 barrier and yeah, keep chipping away on the grind of being a blue collar athlete of working and then also still trying to run 100-mile weeks and get the training in and see what these legs still have in them.
Hmm. Will you say something about that transition or what that journey's been like from, like you said, college and running and realizing that you're pretty good, and then transitioning into the marathon last year? Was that always the plan, or did that just was that an idea that was sparked by this marathon boom that we're seeing?
Yeah, it felt like it was never the plan, I'd say. For a long time, I held off on, the thought of being a marathoner, and the number one question of, I think maybe it 10 to 15 years ago was like, what's your mile time? But now the natural question is, what's your marathon time? And for a long time, I didn't really feel the urge to be able to have an answer to that question. Um, and almost more of afraid of it for a while, of like the splits and the times, like everybody's just so like hyper conscious of the outcomes. And so I was a bit of afraid to like put the chips on the table and like actually train and sign up and like go for it. I think I'm a decent runner, but by no means am I, professional, and I hold myself to a somewhat high standard. So it took a long time for me to finally say, okay, let's do this. Let's go for it. Um, and I'm happy I did. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, I mean, Uh, do you, or when you're describing this, it makes me like it makes me curious about whether or not you felt the pressure to actually run fast, because obviously running a was that a 2:31 then that you did for your first marathon?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a very fast first marathon, like at least to most of us it's like, wow, that's really fast. If I can ever run
Sure.
that fast, that would be really really cool. Did you feel the pressure with your background as a runner to run fast?
Probably not even my background, but more of now my current environment of like
Yeah.
chatting with pro athletes on a regular basis, like being like one of maybe the representatives for, the brand in terms of like talking about running, knowing about running, like understanding both sides of the spectrum of like the experiences of really high level athletes, but then also helping to make shoes for everyday people, whether they're running a 231 or a 431, like having to represent a very large scale. So I felt like, maybe a small burden of like, if I'm going to do this, I have to do it all in to like understand what it takes. And so yeah, I felt more of that burden. And then hopefully I think that's what helped translate it into me running quite quickly, is that like, I didn't want to let myself down, not other people. Nobody cares that I ran a 231. Only I really care.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that was kind of, the amalgamation of like, it's not a real pressure, but I felt like I was like, I have to go all in and really see what I can achieve.
It sounds like you, just like me, and I think to a lot of us who are, a part of this running community, whether it's through social media or other platforms, where you are surrounded by fast runners, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, like a very good performance. Like there are so many good marathon performances out there that are not even close to as fast as yours, but it kind of like at least for me myself, I forget how good that actually is. Like I forget how good my race is because I'm looking at Instagram after the race and I'm like, well, everyone's running so fast. Like I'm
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
fast at all.
Yeah, it all comes down to, yeah, I think what you're looking at or what circles you're working within, and that like, you saying like, yeah, that's a really fast time, like it's super impressive. Like I'm looking, the other direction and being like, I know people who can do extraordinary things that are well beyond like my capacity. And so uh that's maybe just the human condition a little bit of we always are just looking the other way and not appreciating, the fact that, like, you or I or anybody are in, like, the top 1% of people who have ever completed a marathon. Like, it's easy to lose
Yeah.
track of that in the journey of, like, not being happy with yourself.
Yeah, I've actually been trying. I've been out for some runs now. Yeah, kind of like back to coming home from a honeymoon where you're not in shape at all, and you know how those first runs they're just awful. And so like I've felt so awful on my runs, and there have been times where I've been like, I like if I never get back to shape, because right now it doesn't feel like I'm ever gonna get back
Of
to shape.
course. Yeah.
Like, then I'm happy with my 244, and I've been trying to kind of like just tell myself that. that it is good, and it has worked to a certain degree, and I think that is good, and I think it's so important for everyone, regardless of their time, to kind of like back to what you were saying, just running a marathon in the first place is a big deal, and it doesn't really need to be. We shouldn't compare ourselves to others like that, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Coming just off of, like, Western states happening, like, the ultra world is so interesting in the raw card of, like, just finishing is the thing in that world, like, whether
exactly.
it's, 100 miles, 50K, 80K, whatever the distance, like, there's this just more appreciation of, like, "I did that." Whereas in
Hmm.
marathoning, it was like, yeah, that natural feeling for me of being almost, like, afraid to put my chips on the table and sign up, is that, like, it's just so much more about this performance, and not for everybody, just maybe that's just specific to me and a certain set of people, but yeah, the divergence of, like, what success looks like between these 2 ends of the sport is just, like, it's a funny thing to observe.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. No, it's very different. And I think that, at least from my perspective, being in the very much the road running marathon world, I think we have a lot to learn from from the ultra runners. Just also in terms of taking it maybe a bit less seriously. Like feel like
Yeah.
we tend sometimes to overthink it and just be like, oh no, I have to do this, I have to do that, or if I didn't do this, then. But I feel like ultra runners are much more chill, and some of them seem to take it super far, and maybe you don't have to always, like, some of them. I remember oh, what's his name, the one who ran across Australia, and he was like smoking cigarettes at the end of it. I mean, like, I probably wouldn't do that, but I guess it still says something about that mentality, where it's
Sure.
like, oh, I finished my run today, I'm gonna have a cigarette. And it's just like, some
Yeah.
people are like, yeah, you don't combine those two, but on the other hand, it's just like maybe a way um, to get a little bit of a break from running every day.
Yeah, and, that maybe that feeling has also opened up a few different doors for me as well of, like, graciously, I'm good friends with Rory Linkletter, who is a very, very successful marathoner, and to start this journey for me, like, I said, "Hey, man, like, I would love for you to help me out with this marathon journey." And so kind of giving the reins over and having someone else coach
Hmm.
me or, like, help me through this was something I probably wouldn't have previously been, like, my first thought of, I'm an analytical guy. I like to break down the details and control things myself, but I knew that this one was maybe, like, a little outside of my scope of, like, knowledge or expectations, and so it also, like, yeah, created a new avenue of working with someone who I just trust completely, and it was
Yeah.
just take me down the road, and, like, let's see what we can, get in terms of performances, and, like, it's quite fun. So, yeah, shout out to Rory, shout out to Let's Tango.
Hmm.
Probably couldn't have knocked off a 2:31 the first time without it, but, yeah, it's, running as much as you're just out there by yourself half the time, it's a fun thing to be, uh,
Yeah.
on the journey with for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was actually gonna be my next question about your training. And like you did mention Rory, and I'm coached by John, who's his coach. So I'm actually
Yeah.
curious about, like, if there are a lot of similarities, or if Rory is like training one specific way himself, and then John is no, when he's coaching others, he's doing it differently. Or do you have any?
Yeah,
Do you
we
know?
gotta compare training logs, man.
Yeah, we should.
Uh, yeah, I know that, I think Rory's worked with a lot of different coaches along the way and has picked up some things that have worked specifically for him, but in the same way that, I'm saying that it's like he's in control, and, I get the plan, and I generally just try to listen and don't try
Yeah.
to make things up away myself. I'm sure he's acting in a very similar way with John, so John has his own core values, and Roy probably shares a lot of those as well, and they get handed down of the natural coaching lineage, kind of effect, but I think we all, yeah, sort of adapt things from different people we learn from along the way. So,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's one to one, who knows,
Yeah.
but
No.
I think we're probably running a lot of the same workouts and vibes, if I had to
Yeah,
guess.
I would assume that it's a lot of the same philosophy, at least. It would be weird if he was coaching in a very different way than what he was training himself.
Exactly.
But obviously, there's also a difference between a marathoner like Rory who's running like 206, and like compared to someone like me running a 244, for instance, it's kind of, it's
Yeah.
different sports anyways. So
Yeah.
I would
Yeah. Yeah.
understand if there were some big differences as well. Um, but we're gonna talk like a lot of shoes and, you know,
Sure.
more technical stuff today. But I'm still curious about, you did say that you have 100-mile weeks and stuff like that. The fundamentals of your training, or the philosophy that you and Rory are doing, like what does it usually look like for you training wise?
Yeah. Volume is key, I would say. Just also like in my own journey with running, and then Roy's observations is I do the aerobic thing quite well, and so I have the talent or skill. You know, everything's a talent or a skill. Some people can run a really fast mile or whatever it might be. My talent seems to be durability, as one of my primary talents is that I can tend to run a lot, and I say that with an Achilles that's acting up right now for the first time in quite so long time. But um, durability and the ability to be able to run a lot of volume and handle a lot of work is at the core value of what I think allows me to train and be as good as I am running. So pretty consistently, like a lot of high volume on the threshold side of things. You can just do a lot of work and not pay the cost of running hard 200s week in and week out. So a lot of high volume threshold work, double threshold, most weeks, every other week, sort of thing. Um, and then yeah, just grow the long run as the phases build towards a race. But generally somewhere between 80 and 100 miles. It's not like
Mhm,
just maxing out the Strava graph just for the sake of doing so. There's days off in the program. There's you know uh, modulation and flexibility over time. I also travel a lot, so there's a lot of working around being in China for 3 weeks and what that might look like for getting your long run in fresh off a plane, sort of thing. So there's some natural ebbs and flows, but at the core of it is just run as much as you can get in there and a lot of time at threshold because it's just going to help you be a great marathon runner.
mhm. It's interesting because now I've had this podcast for more than a year and talked to so many people, and I think that still I think that it's really interesting to hear, you know, the differences in details that runners will do. But I've also realized that if you can find a way to just run a lot consistently, like that is key. I had a guy on the podcast. His name is Archie Hunt. He ran London Marathon in 227. He has a heart condition, and he was visiting me last week. And then he ran 110K ultra in Finland this weekend, and he won. And because of his heart condition, he can't do anything but zone one and zone two, right? And so it makes me realize that because he's able to have crazy volume, so he can just run and run and run, but he just can't run hard. And obviously, a heart condition is not like an advantage at all. But it's
No, it's a
interesting to
constraint.
see that.
It's a constraint.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
definitely. And so yes, maybe he could have done like faster, had faster results and times if he didn't have the heart condition. But he's still a 227 marathoner as well, and it's just like that's what I'm seeing myself too. That even the times when I've been struggling with niggles, so I haven't been able to run threshold or harder workouts, as long as I'm able to keep up the mileage, then I'm good. Like then I will run faster, and you just fine tune it a little bit when you get closer to the races. And it is interesting to kind of realize as I'm having a podcast where I'm asking all the runners about the, you know, the
Yeah,
details and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the finer details of what they're actually doing, to just be like, there's just one thing that counts really, and then there are just a lot of different ways of doing just that.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, just being able to run is quite the important part, and so therefore everything you stack around that is for fun, for different flavors, but oftentimes lead to the same result. And
Hmm.
that's what's nice to hear all the different training. I mean, I think we're in a threshold boom right now and have been for quite some
Yeah.
time, but it's only a matter of time before people start sprinting again. And
Mhm.
we get bored of it, but I think at the core, like you just said, is like if you're not running a lot, then, that's where you're gonna run into some issues. So,
Yeah, for
um,
sure.
and that's part of my, philosophy around, as a product manager in shoes is like a lot of what the big boom with shoes is right now is I think it's allowing a lot more people, regardless of their performance levels, to just run more. And maybe
Hmm.
most importantly, to enjoy it while they're
Yeah.
running more. It doesn't feel like a chore or something that they're doing because they feel like they need to, is that they're getting out the door and excited about it, whether it's because it's more social these days or they have shoes on their feet that are, quite expensive, but allow them to have a good time. It's
Hmm.
what is making people enjoy running more, and then like making all these faster times keep coming out of nowhere across the entire spectrum of
Yeah.
performances, whether you're a
Yeah.
203 marathoner or otherwise. Like running more is good. So
Yeah.
it's good for the sport.
For sure.
It's good for the sport.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it does bring us to Puma and the things that you guys have been doing over, like I told you just before we started recording. I feel like Puma's just had this in like crazy growth in terms of reputation over the last year, like since Boston last year. um to me, it first started, I think, with the, I don't know if the high campaign was before Boston, was it, or was
Yeah.
it? Yeah,
Yeah.
because I remember seeing that and I was like, this is the best marketing campaign I've ever seen. Like I just thought it was so good, playing, like using that song, that especially as like a 90s kid, I
Yeah.
remember that one. I remember I was singing it in school when I was like in fourth grade and had no idea what it was. I thought
Yeah.
as a Norwegian, I thought it was like, it meant that I was tall, because like high to me was kind of like tall, because if you translate that word
Yeah.
directly in
Yeah.
Norwegian. But using that one and using runner's high, genius. And then we started hearing about this really fast shoe that, and to me was just like Rory was this person who was representing that shoe at the time in
Mhm.
Boston, right? And then all of a sudden you see these fast times, and you just, the hype around that shoe, which was legit because it's like super fast shoe. um uh, I want to ask you more about that shoe, about the lineup that you guys have. But now comes to like the second presentation of you, I guess. I just asked you about your running background. I know that you're based in Boston, but will you say something about like, yeah, your life both outside of running, as a with work and everything else, and also your journey to become a product line manager at Puma.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let's see how we got here. Uh, I was a kinesiology major in university, so I've always been in and around some level of thinking about physiology in the body and how we operate in athletics or rehabilitation. And when I got out of my undergraduate, I thought I was kind of naturally heading towards a more clinical route. Um, and I started dancing around in that world of, is it in a gym? Is it in a rehab facility? Is it, do I want to be a physiotherapist? Like what is it going to look like for me? But running was always a natural undertone the whole time and from a personal perspective. And I had eventually got to the point where I was like, I want to connect these dots of what I'm doing with my work and my life with, just my passionate for watching athletics, running myself, all those sorts of things. And so I decided to go back to university for a master's degree and was lucky enough to get into a lab at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, working with Dr. Wouter Hoekomer, who is the original author of the Nike 4% paper. So I was pursuing a master's degree in biomechanics and energetics, basically studying super shoes for a master's, which is pretty damn cool to
That is cool.
uh, kind of pursue that. So was working in a much more academic domain of biomechanics and physiology, doing a lot of lab tests, and we had a few partners from brands that we were working with, so testing shoes for them and working on different studies to try to start to crack the code on like what it takes to make super shoes, what's important, what's not important, what are the factors that these brands should be optimizing for. And then in coming out of my master's, a job opened up on the product manager side of things for Puma, which as much as I loved the more nerdier side of my life of trying to, can just still learn how to code, do some math, like all the things that I think make you a great scientist and allow you to answer big questions. I also saw an opportunity to just kind of flip to the other side of that pendulum and be more of the person asking the questions rather than trying to answer them. So it was kind of a flip of the process, because I always wondered as a runner myself and my own thoughts on it when I was in the lab of like I would just receive a shoe and then we would be asking questions around it. I was always like, what if I was the one who is taking apart and making that shoe that ends up in the lab? Because I have
Hmm.
my own
Hmm.
ideas and I think I'm smarter than other people. Like I should
Yeah.
I should be able to
Yeah.
do that. Uh, and then it naturally kind of just happened. So luckily I got a position at Puma as a product line manager, um, which is I'll try to define, a little
Yeah.
bit as a
Please
good
do.
start because I don't think the world know if I would have known this job exists in any facet of life, I'd be like, "That's a cool job." So,
Yeah, because
uh,
I was gonna ask you that. What
yeah,
does it actually entail?
yeah. So, a a product manager in the sense of the footwear realm, sort of sits at the center of the ideation and development process for, in this case, shoes, but it could also be apparel. It could be hard goods, soft goods, whatever it might be. So in this case, I sit at the center of asking the right questions or problems that we want to solve for. So starts with a brief of, hey, we want to make the best max cushion shoe in the world, or how do we allow runners to reduce injury risk? How do we make runners faster? And then behind that question is, the opportunity we're going to try to solve for with a product. So the product manager kind of sits at the center of that hub, and then we have a design team, a development team that we work with kind of in the office here in Boston, and this is cookie cutter in terms of every company in the world as well. And they're slightly different, but the general dynamic is quite similar. So we brief into our design and development team. So designers, of course, designing the shoes, bringing them to life visually, and working with us to how to, what are the right stack heights? What are the right proportions? Like, what do we want to solve for? And then our development teams work with our factories in Asia and are also experts in their own right of what's going to be easy to create. Is this going to cost a fortune and we're not going to actually be able to sell it to people at a normal cost? What are the things that go into the producibility of shoes? So we as kind of like a small triad come together and butt heads at times, but then also are just all working to try to make the best possible product for the right solution. And then of course our factory partners in Asia who are experts in their own domain of helping us to find the right ways to change this, what type of foams are available to us, and all those sorts of things. So that is the kind of the general setup. And yeah, as a product line manager, it's like taking that shoe through its whole journey with that team, and then responsible for sort of telling that story to the marketing team to help
Mhm.
them bring it to life, so that way it lands, on your phone while you're scrolling at night or whatever it might be. Of how we're
Yeah.
trying to, you know, make that shoe feel like it's something that you would want to run in or provides a solution for you.
That's cool. It's like you said. When you describe it, it sounds like a super super cool job to have.
Yeah, it's like, I get Christmas every couple of weeks with just like new running shoes coming in big boxes. And, like I said, I'm also our sample size. It's probably
Ah,
one of the
perfect.
most important
Yeah.
parts of my resume is that I'm a sample size. So, all these ideas are floating around and then I'm able to like lace them up and take them out the door. And,
Yeah.
we start to work, to assess through my feet, wear testers' feet, Rory Linkletter's feet, anybody who we can get those shoes on to like understand, like, is it solving that problem? Is it working? Is it not working? Is it
Mhm.
too soft? Whatever the outcome is of that first round of samples. And then we do it all over again until the last very moment of a deadline that we have to press pause and say, all right, it's as good as it's gonna get. Like let's start making it.
Yeah. And before we dive into the products, I am curious if or like how long you guys were planning this strategy of, you know, becoming what I would almost say a pioneer within a very established running shoe market. I don't know if that's like, maybe someone would disagree with me, but I still think that you did, because like um Nike's been up there doing their thing for a while, and then all of it, like a lot of brands have been challenging it. But I feel like what you did last year was kind of challenge it in a different way that we haven't seen in a very long time. And then all of a sudden you have something there where everyone wants this shoe, or everyone starts thinking of Puma differently. Like as a kid, I grew up with Puma being there, but it was just that it was there. I Maybe I had some shoes, but it wasn't like the cool thing. Now it's totally flipped, and like I said, my impression is that it's just within the last year. What may or when did you decide that, okay, we're really gonna invest in running shoes and become what you are, what you actually have accomplished over the last year?
Yeah, I can't say I was, part of the decision-making process of, like, that overnight flip of the switch of, like, we don't do distance running to now we do distance running. I was one of the first kind of members of that was brought onto the team to, like, help start to, like, build that journey, towards, success in the distance running domain. But yeah, I mean, we're historically a athletics brand, right? It's Usain Bolt and a Puma spike and a world record, and that was kind of the story for a very long time
Yep.
within the world of running. Is Puma is an athletics brand and shines on the track, but for the past who knows how many years, the development and the persistence on the distance running side of things was not 100% the focus of the brand. Success in football, success in sports style. You know, Puma has never left, but in the
Hmm.
distance running side of things, around 2021 was kind of the switch of hey, what is it going to take for us to win in this space, and how do we need to do it? So, um, for a few years there, yeah, we were saying we're, a heavily funded running startup. Uh, in terms of
Yeah.
like the expectations were low, just as you said, like Puma was there, but the expectations were not heavy on our backs in terms of people caring, expecting, like, it was just sort of like, oh, Puma's here making running shoes again. And through the last 5 years or so, it's just been a game in the same way of running performance. You just got to keep running the miles and putting yourself out there. It's with shoes. There's definitely a journey of like no shoe is ever perfect and no line of shoes is ever perfect, but continuing to just iterate, get new materials, work on different proportions, different geometries, try a different thing. It all kind of coagulates over time to those breakout successes. So in the same, like I said, the same way of like, wow, you ran 2:31. That's so impressive. It's like, well, it was a lot of unknown work for a long time. And I think that's representative of kind of what's happening with Puma right now is like nobody cared and we stacked it up. And then all of a sudden Fast R3 came out and everyone was like, oh, now we really care. Where did Puma
Yep.
come from? But it's like
Hmm.
we've just been iterating and it took a little bit of time before we found that perfect formula. But yeah, last year with Fast R3 was definitely a huge turning point for us.
Yeah, and it's interesting to also see how one product, and I'm pretty sure Rory actually said when I had him on my podcast in the beginning of the pod, and he said something about like, yeah, Puma should be very pleased that I ran so fast in Boston, because he kind of like, because of his performance as well, right? Like that probably helped. But you started seeing runners running fast. You had Project Three, and with that, it also opens people's eyes to other shoes in the lineup, right? So
Yeah.
like, for instance, I've been running in Velocity for now for the last weeks, and it's such a good shoe, and probably a shoe that I never would have discovered if it wasn't for the Fast R3, right? Because it's just like, at least as a marathoner, that it was the shoe that opened my eyes to more the bigger lineup that you guys have. So how was that for you guys? Because I assume that as a running shoe brand, you can't just have one shoe. You have to have like, you have to have several shoes. And then when one shoe succeeds, you need to also have a plan for, okay, we need to have a lineup here now, so that if people come into the store and they want just their whole shoe rotation being Puma, we need to be able to offer that to them. Was that also something that you really had to plan for when developing this super shoe, or was it like the package that you were focusing on the whole time?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the product line. The line part of my job title
Mhm.
is just that, is it's a line of products, right? It's not just one. And so we break things up between speed, so like race day and speed trainers, and then more of your traditional, cushioning and entry running products. And so um yeah, we have to have a little bit of something for everybody, and especially like you're saying, of like there's this lighthouse of a shoe that works and it opens up the door, but that's not going to be the right shoe for everybody. Whether it's they don't even sign up for races and that's a shoe that they don't need, but people are validating that we're bringing something that is authentic and high performing and innovative to the market, that the natural curiosity and different entry point in terms of either running experiences or price points that people can contact our shoes with, we have to be prepared. So yeah, it's like a chicken or the egg sort of situation. Is we've
Hmm.
had 10 shoes for, quite a long time now, but you have to look at them maybe in slightly different ways, like coming off of the success of this kind of hero innovative shoe, and how we trickle things down to, you know, tie to that success. So
Yeah.
whether it be
Yeah.
through materials that we use, so like the foam experience, or even just how something looks, which is,
Hmm.
can't be overlooked, in terms of like
Exactly.
us as consumers. Things have to look
Oh,
very
yeah.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like sometimes, like I look at a shoe and say there's a sale on one colorway, but then the other one that I really like is not on sale, and it's the same shoe, and I might spend like $50 more on a
Yeah.
shoe with a different colorway because I like that color. It's just like whenever I do that, I'm like, that's stupid. I'm gonna run in these shoes for a couple of months and then I have to retire them anyways, or like more than a couple of months maybe. But you get what I mean. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
focusing too much on whether they are white or they're black. It doesn't really matter if you can save money, but that's just us as consumers, I guess.
Yeah, it's the natural way that we go, if especially with running becoming a little bit more aesthetic, like we're taking pictures of ourselves for our Instagrams or otherwise, like, part of your image is part of how you perform and how you know, feel about lacing up your shoes every morning, uh,
Yeah.
when you go to do so. So if you hate looking at that colorway, then like that's not gonna spark the fire for you to get out the door for those miles. So it's important, you know?
It is. It is. And to your lineup, so I'm sure there are more people than just me wondering, like, where do you say nitro? Is that how you pronounce it, or
That's our
nitro?
that's our foam technology, Nitro.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. And I think that, so I said more people than me, but like I know, but I feel like to a lot of people, and especially the first time I heard it. So the first time I heard Nitro, I was like, oh, it's probably just like a gimmick to kind of make it sound faster. Um, I'm curious, do you know, or were you a part of the like why you ended up calling it Nitro?
Yeah. So, coming off the back of the 4%, and just the amazing work that Nike did to sort of ignite a whole new world of shoe creation.
Mhm.
One of the facets of that was at the heart of it was the foam and the experience that foam was able to provide to runners. So, um, supercritical foaming technology was one of the core facets in which sparked Puma's reset in 2021. It was that this technology is going to be the future of pretty much everyone's running shoes. And we had kind of an avenue in which we wanted to use that across everything. So whereas it was maybe just for race day, maybe just, for specific shoes that were on the pricier side of things for specific performance, we saw the value in using that everywhere. And so the supercritical foaming process just uses nitrogen to inject and kind of blow up these plastics into big, fun, bouncy running foams. So the term nitro is attached to the process in which
Mhm.
it was to make. these supercritical foams. And just as you said, nitro is just a sick name. So
It
it
is really cool. It just
inspires
sounds fast.
it
So like
inspires speed. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, because I did not know about like actually nitrogen part. I was just like, that's genius because it sounds fast. It sounds good and it sounds fancy. And especially with the Fast R3, I feel like it fits very well because it looks like a Formula One car. That in my
Yeah,
head, like
yeah.
that's it's a design where it looks really fast. And I don't know if you agree or if you're even allowed to say, but I feel like they're awful to just stand in. Like I remember trying them on the first time. I was like, wow, these are horrible to stand in. But then you start jogging and you're like, oh wow, okay, now I get it.
Yeah, I would say one of the core tenets on of our product team is, yeah, we're not necessarily optimizing any of our shoes for walking shoes most of the time. We are running brands making running shoes, and so while there's, I would say, historically so many models that people use for every different type of purpose in the world of
Yeah.
just walking around or comfort, because running shoes are generally more comfortable.
Yeah.
The densities of foam, the choices that we make, the geometries that we do, especially like Fast R is like the craziest representation of that, is they are optimized to do one thing, and that's to run fast or have a good time running. So, yeah, not a great standing shoe, Fast R, that's for sure.
But I think that's also good. Like I always laugh. I was in France now and I saw this person walking around. I'm pretty sure he was wearing a suit and one of the not your brand, some other brand, and the super shoe, the fastest shoe of a different brand with his suit. And I was like, oh wow, you wore that with that. It's just but sometimes I'm like, did they just walk into the store and like, I'm gonna buy the most expensive shoe I find in this running shoe store, and I'm gonna get that because that's gonna make me look good.
Yeah, it's an interesting one now. There's like full Instagram pages dedicated to just like spotting super shoes like out of context.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
a pair of marathon racing shoes at the supermarket
Hmm.
is not so out of place anymore. It happens probably more
Yeah,
frequently than I'd like for it to happen, but
yeah. But
it's
I
cool.
don't think that will happen with the Faster 3 because I don't think anyone would. I hope they wouldn't because that would be awful to just walk around or stand still and in those. And now it sounds like I'm talking about it in a bad way, but I want to touch on that shoe and like at because we can touch on the rest of the lineup at the end of our conversation. But I feel like the Fast R3 is like, at least to me, like I said, it was what opened my eyes to Puma more. And also when I tried them on the first time yeah, I guess it was this time last year, I was just blown away. And I remember leaving my house here. I was just going to do a warm up, and I was almost at race pace. I felt like when I was jogging. Um, and so when I saw on your Instagram when we started following each other, you don't have that many posts, but I saw one of them being about we made a shoe. It's pretty good. I hope you like it or something like that. And there was a
Yeah,
photo of the shoe that was from last year. And uh, I think people didn't just like it; they loved it. Will you say something about the process of making this
yeah.
shoe? Because that must have been insane, and also how it felt to see it being received so well.
Sure. Yeah. It's been definitely a fun ride, and it's version 3 of the shoe, right? So that's like, we've tinkered and created along the way. And so, yeah, to have the version 3 just be this immaculate, like new experience underfoot that, felt like the first time for me putting on a super shoe ever again. And it sounds like it's described in the same way for you. Uh, it was definitely a fun process. So, yeah, starting back from the beginning is we also, alongside my team, like I described, we also have our innovation team that works on projects that are a little bit more based in either technologies or uh, longer timelines. So that way there's just more time for iteration and perfection to create new experiences. So, um, in regards to, we had our Fast R2, that's why I started there, is it has always been a shoe that's been kind of an innovation platform for our team. So, Fast R1 and Fast R2 have always been podular. So whereas I would say every other kind of marathon racer has traditionally been top layer of foam, bottom layer of foam, and a carbon fiber plate, we as a brand started to reimagine what that might look like. So different designs, different stiffnesses of plates, like crazier looking visuals, and all with the goal of providing, yeah, a more propulsive experience. So rather than just a shoe that allows you to turn the legs over and feel a bit bouncier and quicker, we wanted to elevate that performance underfoot. So the journey of Fast R started with our innovation team taking actually the Fast R2, which we knew we had something on our hands. It was the first shoe to ever feature a carbon fiber plate that extended beyond the toe. It was our first shoe using aliphatic TPU as a new raw material within our race day shoes. So, new raw material, new plate constructions, and we had something, but it just wasn't right. It just like your entry point to Fast R3 is like you've never put on a Fast R2 in your life, and the interest around that shoe is not nearly as, the level of insanity that we have with our current shoe. But Fast R3 started with that shoe, knowing that we had some of the right direction, and our innovation team working through basically a reductionist process of how do we take away the things that don't need to be there, but maintain the maximum amount of what is kind of providing this new and fun experience in a shoe. So a lot of stress and strain analysis and using kind of the virtual world to simulate what it means to optimize a shoe. So taking that second version and transforming it into what the three was yeah, just like a almost like a statue, like you have a big block of marble and chipping away. That was kind of the process from the 2 to the 3 of we kept the amount of like that propulsive feeling and the bouncy feeling of the foam, but just removed anything that didn't need to be there. And yeah, when we had that first sample of the shoe, I'm like I said, I'm sample size, so I'm always one of the first people on the lab treadmill to validate what's going on. And it was like love at first sight. It was we thought the computer was broken. We thought that, you know, something wasn't
That's
calibrated
so funny.
correctly. Uh, it was that, yeah, that first unique experience of you getting out the door. Like even we as a team who are wearing and putting on all sorts of different shoes and trying different prototypes is we knew from a very early stage that we were on the right trajectory and had something that no one had ever really untapped before, which prompted, myself, our innovation team, our marketing team to all like gather up and be like, okay, how are we going to validate the shoe? How are we going to tell this story and how are we going to like disrupt the running
Yeah.
industry to like assert ourselves and make people trust that this shoe is a shoe that they should be putting on their feet to chase a PR. So, yeah, then that was almost a 2-year process to bring that to life in the right way and, you know, try to be able to tell the story.
But how do, because this story is amazing and you are describing, a little bit of the process, and I'm sure we could have talked for hours about how you actually did this. But uh, um, what I find so fascinating is that, and this is going to keep happening, right? Like there's going to be, at some point, there will be, whether it's you guys or someone else, it's going to be someone who just revolutionizes it again. And I'm just, I guess, back to you saying that you can be the person who's asking the questions, and developing the product with your team. How do you approach a task like that? Because it's a pretty big task, right? To be like, now we're going to do something that hasn't really been done before. We have a lot of competition in this area, or this within this
Well,
little niche, but we're going to beat the competition, and you ended up doing that. How do you, like, what are the steps, what kind of questions, what kind of mentality is needed in order to make that happen?
yeah, I think at the core of it, how I think of the shoe creation process, at least, from a speed and performance side of things, is you need to have something that you are optimizing for. Because if you don't have something that you are targeting, you end up just trying to make every lever, everything really good. And you end up with not a mediocre outcome, but you get an outcome that is rather democratic.
Yeah.
Um, so in the same way that you're saying that putting on Fast R and trying to even warm up with it or walk in it, and it's terrible, is very counterintuitive to probably what you would naturally if you were trying on a running shoe in a store. You'd be like, "Oh, this is really uncomfortable, like, it's probably not for me," or "That looks weird, it's kind of scary, it's probably not for me." But when you optimize for very specific outcomes, it allows you to build something specific for a certain sector of people.
Hmm.
And that I would say has been the biggest maybe criticism of our shoe is we've done external validation to say that it's more efficient than other running shoes in the market. We've validated with a lot of performances, whether it be someone like Patrick Deaver, Roy Linketter, whoever's from our pro athlete roster that is performing very well in the shoe, all the way through those Project Heat 3 athletes who are, sub 3 hour marathoners. But the criticism is that this shoe doesn't work for me. I run X time, or this shoe doesn't work for me. My calves hurt when I run in it, or,
Yeah.
a list of things that don't work for some people. But very obviously, it works very well for other people, which is this balance that, me at the center of it, not just me. I can take no individualized credit. Our whole team here does all the parts and pieces to bring these things to life. But is how do we decide what we're okay with or who we're okay with turning away to optimize for specific
Yeah.
outcomes?
Yeah.
So Fast R was validated and tested very rigorously at fast paces from the very origins of it. Between 5:30 and 6-minute miles were what the shoe was kind of like built around. So
Yeah.
when you say it feels weird to walk or jog in it, I'm like, it should.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
it should. And so that is just one case of what we're optimizing for. We were optimizing for energy return and propulsion. And so we were trying to make the bounciest and most propulsive vehicle that you've ever had the opportunity to put on your feet to allow you to chase fast times. And I think we did that quite well. But it's only a matter of time, like you're saying, until ourselves or somebody else finds a different thing to slightly optimize for or a different lever to pull that creates a new outcome.
Hmm.
Um, so whether that be super lightweight or only bouncy or whatever type of lever you want to optimize for, that's the most important part of I think my job as a product manager is understanding and hearing inputs from people like you or people like our wear testers or people like our athletes to understand what people need and then being able to derive that down into like very small things to optimize for to elevate those experiences.
Yeah.
Um, so that could be stability, that could be anything, but specifically in the case of Fast R, it is running as hard and fast as you can for anywhere between the 5K and the marathon distance,
Yeah.
and that's what it is.
But what's also unique about it, I would say, is that usually when people talk about a shoe, they will either say, "Oh yeah, I don't like that shoe," or "I like that shoe," or like I love that shoe," and you share that like about a lot of shoes, and I think that that's very normal. You either like it or you don't. What you hear more about the Faster 3, and like I feel like I'm getting tired of me saying this, but I'm like, it's the fastest shoe I've ever tried. There's no doubt about it. There's like it's the fastest shoe in the world. I just am not able to run in them because my calves can't handle it, right? Like that's kind of been my mentality. And then when I was lucky enough to be when Luke, your colleague, reached out and asked me if I wanted to join you guys on the Project 3 this year, I was like, you know what, I want to take this as an opportunity to actually learn how to do that, because that's the thing that I think that it's easy to get stuck on the mentality of, oh, they're
Mm,
just not for me, because obviously I want to run in them. I want to run in the fastest shoes, but I also don't want to get injured.
of
But I
course.
think that an important thing to also mention when we talk about this is that, kind of back to what you were saying, you wanted to make a fast shoe. This is not about like, this is not a shoe that you made saying like, oh, we're going to make this to make sure everyone stays free of injuries, right? Like that wasn't the goal or the purpose of this shoe. And the ones that are running the fastest in these shoes will also be professional runners who are doing exercises every day to make sure that their calves or ankles, whatever, will be
Sure.
strong enough to get through a race no matter what. So I think that is like, it's a it's a professional product, and I think that a lot of people forget that, because today we have access to a lot of the same products as like average runners, we have access to professional tools like the Fast R3. And so I guess my question to you, and we talked a little bit about this before as well, is if I want to build up my strength to use the Fast R3 for like a marathon. Because for me, when I was running 10K workouts in them, it was just perfect. I never felt anything. It was when I got into those long runs, like 30K, and I did that for a couple of times. That's when I was like, oh, I can feel something. And probably just because my either my ankles or my calves were just not strong enough. That's kind of my guess.
Yeah. I won't pretend to wear the I'm a doctor, name tag today that I have the necessarily the right things to tell you to just go to the gym and do. Um, but I will ground it in, first of all, it's we don't love that that's the feedback. We've just learned to accept that this is
Yeah.
a narrowly optimized shoe for specific purposes. And then how do you make the best shoe in the world better? Is you listen to the feedback of people like you. And so,
Hmm.
of course, trending towards the fourth version, it's okay, how do we resolve that? Because even though maybe some of our best marathoners are not complaining that this is happening, maybe there's something that's actually detracting from their ability to run faster. Maybe this is a constraint that is allowing people to go even further or even faster. So, uh, as a team on our side is we're hearing that feedback and applying it to the next one of like ways to now optimize further. But in the
Yeah.
near term, you still have races to run. So
Hmm.
that becomes our problem of you run out of time, you put a shoe out to the world, and it's the fastest shoe in the world, and we're stoked about that. But how do we make it better? And then how do we allow folks like you to learn how to use the tool better? Um,
But I
so
also think before you
it's
continue, because I
yeah.
I think it's a very humble approach by you guys, but I also think that there's a component in this that a lot of people also forget about because it's such a fast shoe. You end up running faster than your body is actually meant to run at that like in my current state of running. I'm actually not supposed to be able to run as fast as that shoe makes me run because I'm not mechanically or physically endurance wise. Like there's nothing that in some ways you could say that there's nothing uh telling my body or saying that I'm supposed to run this fast. And so whenever you end up doing this, and you hear that from a lot of young fast athletes as well, right? Like you have to hold them back because they are now starting to get to the limit where mechanically they can't keep up with this. And I feel like that's what's happening with the shoe. So regardless of the build of the shoe or whatever, when you have a very fast shoe, you will probably
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
this problem, right?
Yeah,
So
and that's ubiquitous, like, I would say across, like, all shoes right now, and I said it as a really positive note, earlier of, like, these new shoes and these new foams are allowing people to enjoy running more, which is allowing them to run more, which is an amazing thing 'cause I think it allows more people to experience the love and enjoyment that I have of running, and I think, you as well over your journey of continuing to try to chase PRs now. But on the opposite side of that, there's, like, I would say some traditionalists that are like, "These shoes are breaking people. These shoes are
yeah,
allowing people to
yeah.
act out of character with their training and run faster than they should or skip some parts of the, like, learning process of good mechanics or the right strength and the right stability where you need it." Um, so, to use specifics of Fast R, it's like I mentioned, it's a very rigid plate and it extends out beyond your toe, which is a completely different dynamic from a lever perspective than you're used to running with in terms of your daily trainers, but even many other super shoes as well. Um, that you're essentially shifting that lever. The example that I like to use is um, gears on a bike. So the Fast R is basically going up a gear, and it's hard to overcome the forces of that gear. But then as soon as you start turning it over, it's easier to move faster, which is kind of the experience of this kind of enhanced gear that Fast R provides. But with that, like you're saying, is like you spend a lot of time hammering at that upper gear, you're going to get tired. You're going to experience some fatigue in places that maybe you weren't before when you were in a lower gear. So it's just a different experience, and the natural laws of specificity, I think, are at the heart of fast R. Is like you said, of you go to the track and you rip some fast reps, you're not encountering some of those points of fatigue that you would normally find 30K into a long run or a race. You can rip a K rep, you know, like, wow, 310, holy shit,
Hmm.
that's so fast. And like, then just walk away unscathed. But it's the accumulation of those over time, or the accumulation of what that shoe is imparting upon, your running style for longer distances, that you just have to grow accustomed to.
Yeah.
So in the same way of, you wouldn't go into the gym and just keep trying to lift the 50-pound dumbbell and do bicep curls. You'd start small and you'd grow it over time to get your way there. I think FastR is the same way, is that, as your reps grow in a marathon build, as your long runs grow in a marathon build, you have to continue to leverage the use of that shoe for longer reps and build the mechanical efficiencies and durability to tolerate it. So
Hmm.
in that regard, you can build calf strength by running in fast R and
Yeah.
getting your calves used to the mechanical, demands of the shoe over those longer distances. Um, Couple calf raises or otherwise might not hurt as well, but
Mm.
you know, I I put my hands up to exactly what you're doing outside of your running experiences,
Yeah.
but using the shoe and learning to harness its power over longer distances, that's the first, the core tenet, I would say, of what I've advised everybody to do.
And I think it totally makes sense. And I also believe that the issue that we might have today is that a lot of us we will also save our fastest shoes for like the race day or the
Yeah.
last workout before the race. And what that leads to is like, and now it might sound like I'm not representing Puma when I'm talking about this or any shoe brand. And it might sound like if you say this out loud that, oh, it's just another way of having people buy more shoes. But when you're talking about this, I can also see that maybe one of the mistakes that I made before my fall marathon last year was that I spared the shoes a little bit, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna use them leading up to the race, but I didn't use them in the build up. So like if I was using them for every long run or every workout that I was building up from like 4 months out, then I would probably be stronger when I got to those last long runs, and I would maybe be more used to it, right? So that's also something to just keep in mind, I guess, so that you don't end up having like done most of your harder workouts or long runs in shoes that are not super shoes, and then you end up doing it in super shoes, and then that's kind of a disaster waiting to happen, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, from a literature perspective, whether it's fast R or otherwise, these shoes with carbon fiber plates and high stack heights and different foam dynamics, they change the way you run. If you were to be running barefoot versus strapping on a fast R3, like, your gait and the demands it places on different muscles and different joints are different. And so therefore, the specificity of being able to tolerate that, I would say, is the most important thing, which is counterintuitive to, I think, the pure thought of like training your trainers and then strap on the house shoes for race day. But um yeah, in the same way that the person just learning how to get out the door for some runs puts on some funner, faster shoes and can run more, you putting on a pair of fast R3s for more workouts or more long runs is going to teach you how to run faster and for longer. Um,
Hmm.
and it's not even
Yeah.
just for fast R3. I would say for almost any of these modern shoes, like, the
Yeah.
technology is just so different from, I'd say, what we naturally have even grown up running, whether it be through like on a soccer pitch with boots on, or just like running around. It's
Yeah.
quite a different experience.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that, like looking at your lineup, I have all the shoes here. We're not going to go through all of them, and but I think that, like you said, it's the same for kind of all shoes. But then you definitely do have some shoes that are maybe made for other aspects of it, or for other runners, or that are more. or not as like, I don't know, rough or aggressive. But then they are still really fast because I got the Deviate from you guys couple of months back, and I I don't know if it was that I think I posted on Instagram and just wrote that I had them. And then I got several messages from people being like, I love those shoes. Those are my favorites. I love doing workouts in them. And those are also people who are running in Fast R3 for races. Uh, Quickly before we wrap this all up, what is the difference between the Deviate and Fast R3, and like what was the motivation to also make the Deviate shoe?
First off, thank you to those people in your DMs for enjoying our shoes through workouts and racing. Thanks for running with us. It still doesn't go unnoticed when I'm in Boston, like running down the river, and I see a pair of shoes that I had a part in bringing to life. It's still so cool. Know how many years I've done it now. It doesn't. It's still so cool. So thank you to those people, and thank you to you for enjoying them. But with that, it's like there's different people and different purposes for why they run or how they run. So in the same way that, just had a little monologue about, running fast and fast shoes and gearing it up towards personal bests and those sorts of things, for a certain tier of athletes, something like the Deviate Elite, we've tried to optimize for different things. So more of this traditional formula of you can stand in it, as many people in our office wear them around just because they look really cool and, whatever, you can stand in that shoe. But it's more optimized
Yeah,
for a more stable race day experience. So
yeah.
it features the same technology as Fast R. So an aliphatic based Nitro Elite foam. It features a carbon fiber plate. It features, all the same parts and pieces, but just a completely different engineering process to create a different outcome. So although
Hmm.
it's the same ingredients in the soup, like they're tasting quite differently.
Yeah.
So something like Deviate Elite, generally suits somebody who is maybe a bit lighter or has a faster cadence, traditionally, whereas Fast R is like the longer plate and it's quite crazy and propulsive. It kind of pushes you outside of maybe your normal, shorter, faster stride. So athletes like Fiona O'Keefe, who she's a little bit lighter, has a really high cadence, and enjoys the experience of the shoe just amplifying her running gait and running performance rather than putting on a shoe like Fast R that like feels like it's a rocket ship and it takes her outside of her normal running experience.
Yeah.
She's one of the fastest female marathoners in the world, so she has her own prerogative to be like, no, I like my stride. I like the way that
Hmm.
I run, and I don't want a product that necessarily feels like it's launching me to the moon. I just need something that feels stable, feels fast, and features those same great ingredients, just utilized in a different way. So
Yeah.
that is the two silos for us on race day is a little bit more of the humble, stable, yet still bouncy, fast, and responsive shoe with Deviate Elite, and then with Fast R, yeah, more of that optimized, aggressive, really particular pinnacle performance sensation.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, for us, we have to acknowledge that that's not for everybody. And
Yeah.
so I appreciate that you're still chasing the dragon and you want to make it the perfect solution for you. Uh, I've ran both marathons myself in Fast R, so I'm a believer as well.
Yeah.
But we have to, in the same way, create that other experience on race day, and then that kind of applies, down the chain with the everyday running shoes as well. Is there's different shoes for different people and different solutions that they need from their running shoe.
But based on your answer here, and I think this is what's so good, and that's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to ask you that question, is that I feel like it's very easy when you have a shoe like Fast R3 for your customers that they end up being like, oh, but like the Deviate is like Deviate Elite is a downgrade. Like it's a not as fast shoe, and like in some ways you could probably say that if you tested it, but that would also be like you said, different people, different runners, different shoes. And so I think it's really important to kind of keep in mind that You don't have to go into the store and be like, I need the Fast R3. You could try them both, and then you realize, oh, this is actually better for me, and you can still run really fast marathons in the Deviate Delete as well. So it's I think it's easy to forget or neglect when you have the Fast R3 next to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like my personal experience is that Deviant Elite is like my go-to for most workouts. It's the bread and butter shoe. It's a lot of those quicker threshold sessions. Like Fast R3 doesn't come out of the closet like for every session because every session doesn't need to be a home run, and just want something that's stable, reliable, like just the proven formula for me for most of training. And I could say that some people just want that on race day too, is they're like, I did all this training in this really reliable feel that I just wanted to get on the marathon start line and have that same experience without, the need for any of the excess.
Yeah,
Um, which
yeah,
is great. And just in the same
yeah,
way that like somebody might be out there running a marathon at a velocity because that's what they did their training in, and that's just how it works for them. So
and it is a good
uh,
shoe too.
yeah.
It's honestly, yeah, it feels really good.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That's a god.
Well, Damien, I think I need to have you back on at some point so we can go through the whole lineup. I was optimistic when I thought that we could. I told you an hour 109. I actually said 45 to 60 minutes, so we're kind of over time here. But I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing this, and I can't wait to keep working with you guys at Puma. It will be fun this summer and fall to see what we can do together as well with Project Three. I'm very excited, and um, yeah, I think I'm gonna try to make it a little project on this podcast to see how I can get used to the Fast R3 because I definitely believe that it's possible, regardless of you know a bit sore calves the first time I try them.
I certainly think it's possible. I think a PR in your future in that shoe. It just is.
Yeah,
It's just a matter of time.
I'll bring them to Valencia.
I'll be there as well. So I'm also running Valencia this year, and
Awesome. That we'll run together in the Fast R3.
maybe the Fast R3.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Damien. I really appreciate it and talk to you later.
Thanks, Christian. It was a pleasure. See you, man.
Thank you so much to Damien for coming on. And thank you to Puma. I'm so excited to keep working with them going forward with Project 3. And I'll let you guys know more about the specifics of that. But as for now, I'm really thankful to Damien for sharing these things about the shoes, and I definitely need to have him back on so we can talk more about the lineup because I think that there are still a lot of things to talk about. The next episode of the Marathon Podcast will probably not be out until Friday afternoon or Saturday. I am going to London for a couple of days for work, so need to prioritize that. But it will be a good one. It's another fairly fast marathoner, very fast marathoner, and yeah, I'll talk to you then. And remember, you can get 10% off, sorry, 20% off a Strava subscription by using the code Christian. You can see how you spell that down below. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for listening. You listen to the Marathon Podcast, brought to you by Wild Studio.